on the road. We're going to start it off with some wins. If you have a win, I would love for you to just unmute and tell us what good is happening, or put it in the chat. If you don't have a mic, that's fine. Knows how to read, so we can read them out for you.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, we were on here and asking questions about hiring and struggling to get good applicants. We made a couple hires, but last week we had one of the guys we hired. Just it wasn't a bad situation, just wasn't really a good fit, and so we let him go. But we had left our ad up, so we were able to immediately find another qualified individual. I think that'll really fit way better with our company. So win for this week. He starts tomorrow.
Yes. Love that, Scott. And there's wisdom in that win right there, where you want to always be looking. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Let's make sure to always have a job posted, to always be interviewing. You never know when something's going to happen and you need to grow really quickly and get somebody onboarded, or you never want to be held hostage by an employee because you feel like you can't replace them. So wisdom in that win, Scott. Thank you so much for sharing. What else is going on, guys? What wins are we having?
While you guys think of one, I've got a client I've been working with for a couple of years now in Northeast. He has a junk removal and hauling business. Anyways, he just had his biggest month ever. They had in the month of May 100,000 in sales and almost 50% profit margin. At the same time as some weird personnel things going different ways, but persevered and had the biggest month he's ever had, which is a huge milestone for him. He's been creeping up there for a while.
Yes. I see Dale Eads with Arnold's Plumbing just put in a win in the chat. He says, our win is that even during this downturn in our economy, we're going strong. So strong that we are having a company outing this weekend. The whole company will be going to the lake to play in the sun and the water together. So, Dale, I love that. Congratulations, sir. I also think it's a huge win that you are showing up in the top 3 for plumbers in Oklahoma City, which is a pretty large area. You've worked hard to get over 700 reviews to be there. And so just such congratulations. Make sure to send us some photos of the team outing this weekend. That sounds like a blast. Cody, if you are able to unmute, I'm gonna call you out here. I know that it's been a rough week and there's been some downs that have happened, but you told me a win yesterday, that you guys are so busy that you were able to do something. If you're able to unmute, I would love for you to share that win. I also know that they just had a big storm there and he hasn't had internet for the past couple of days, so he might not be able to unmute. Yeah, he might not.
Yeah.
Well, so he came to us just doing commercial work. They had no Google presence, no service side of the company. They've gotten so busy that they were able to turn off Google local services and just fill up the service department with organic leads that they are not paying for. And so wanted to congratulate him. It's a whole new side of the business there. I see more people coming in on the call. What wins do we have going, guys? You can either put them in the chat or we'd love for you to unmute and share.
Wins, good things, insights from the week.
A win from Elevation Plumbing. We've been booked out now. Well, we had 2 guys, our apprentices, this summer. They turned into leads. Well, one of them, and they've been doing a great job. They only had 1 callback, and that was due to a just like the customer wanted something insulated a little bit better. But besides that, they've been crushing it, which has definitely helped us because me and Anthony, we're just out selling while those guys are installing. So working out great.
Come on. That's awesome. That's awesome. Any other wins?
Well, I wish they were here to share, but we had, at least as far as me, for coaching, this is the most amount of leads I've ever seen a client with local services. If one of the coaches has more, would love for you to one up me here. But we have a client.
No, it's the most, Nicole. Don't be
Yeah,
modest.
thanks.
Copper Peaks Plumbing, who is in Salt Lake City. They just added HVAC. They've been their plumbing company, but they just added HVAC this year. In the first 11 days of June, they got 183 leads through Google Local Services alone. Does not include repeat clients, does not include referrals, people just calling their number because they have their number. That is through Google Local Services alone. They did 113,000 in revenue last week. Just the first week of June. So I wanted to
Fine.
Congratulations. I know that we don't like paying for leads, guys, and our goal here at Redmond Growth is to make sure the leads that are coming in are the most cost effective. We're focusing on your highest and best use when it comes to marketing. You know, there's 1,005 different ways to market a company. We want to focus on what's the most fruitful. But who cares if you're paying for those 183 leads if you bring in 113,000 in 1 week? So love to see it. Okay. Any other wins here, guys? Going once, going twice. Well, if you think about a win later on the call, don't hesitate to share it or put it in the chat. It's good for us. It's good for other clients. It's good for you to focus on the good things that are happening. So just don't hesitate to share. But let's go ahead and get into it today, guys. What questions do we have? What burning fires are we dealing with? What maybe insights do we have from the week or concerns that we're running into? It's for you to share. Laura, I saw your hand go up. First come, first serve. Tell us what's happening.
Good morning. So I have a couple questions. My first question is, do you all charge a cancellation fee? So you get somebody booked and then they call the night before, they text you or the morning of, oh, hey, something's come up, I can't make it. How do you handle, having a crew of guys booked out to go do a job and then the customer, pulls the plug?
It's a great question. I would love for any clients to give feedback. Dale Eads comments, he goes, hard to collect that money. Yeah, I hear you there, Dale. I think that's valid.
You could always do like what we do is we do 50% down, and then once the work is complete, we collect the remaining. And if they decide to cancel, then they'll get 25% of it back. But because we already have our team installing, or our team and parts ordered and so on, so there's a lot that goes into it. So when you cancel it, it puts a wrench in our day, and so you could always do that.
I love that, Fernando.
Yeah, all my proposals say that we require a deposit for mobilization and materials procurement. And so, you just have to be upfront about it, and then don't mobilize until you charge.
Yes, great feedback, both Aaron and Fernando. I know for service companies, it could be a little bit challenging, having a cancellation fee for just a service call. But for our remodelers, for even like if you do service work, but it's a big project, big commercial project or anything like that, if you're going to be ordering materials before starting that job, if you're going to be hiring subs or getting equipment, we've got to make sure that the money is ahead of the work or ahead of the and so definitely getting some type of deposit like Fernando suggested. I even have some clients, remodelers, or if they're doing a big job coming up, that they'll collect a non-refundable fee or deposit that reserves the spot in your calendar. And even if you're not planning on ordering materials before the job, it reserves that spot in your calendar. We're going to get everything together. It's going to reserve our crew to go out to your job that week. If you decide not to move forward, that fee is non-refundable. And so I think you have a few different options, Laura, and we can kind of talk about it based on the type of job and the situation. But I think either getting a deposit up front or having some type of fee to reserve that spot in your calendar for those larger jobs is totally fair. And whenever they say, yes, we're going to move forward, you would just collect the card to put on file and you would charge that fee. And if they move forward, that fee goes to, the job. If they don't, that fee is non-refundable.
Yeah. So almost in a way of framing that not as cancellation, but more reservation. It's a reservation fee.
Yeah. Which is very normal. I booked a spray tan this week and they told me if I don't cancel it within 24 hours of the appointment, I would get charged half of what it is. If the spray tan gals can do it, I think you guys can too. I think it's fair.
Well, and that's exactly my point. And I should have prefaced that this is more geared towards, service and repair, not any larger projects. So in California, you can only ask for 10% down on a residential project, but more towards if you're booking, several days or a week out in your service department and you have a customer call and say, okay, I need you there on Thursday morning, you get set up to go send the guy. And then the morning of or the night before they say, oh, hey, sorry. And I mean, life happens, it's nothing personal, but, and now I've got a guy sitting there or I'm scrambling, trying to figure out what am I going to do with you now? So I just was wondering what, the census was on how you either compensate yourself or I guess maybe apply more pressure to the client that, look, you're obligated to us now. And if they don't reschedule, then maybe you get to keep the fee. I don't know, just thinking out loud.
Yeah, I mean, that would be what I'd recommend. If they reschedule it, I wouldn't probably penalize them for that unless it's like a pattern. Like this is a client that's consistently always rescheduling, always pushing back, at some point we're going to need to set a boundary. But if it's, not common, this is somebody, they had a family emergency, whatever, not punishing them for that, just saying, hey, just want to let you know, we're happy to reschedule it this time, but typically, this fee is not refundable. And if you cancel a job within 24 hours before that job, that fee goes to us.
Got it. One last question. So this charging for an estimate is a new experience for us. And I'm curious how other contractors collect for the estimate. Do you collect the estimate when you go to see them, or do you collect the estimate prior to delivering it? Because if I'm understanding correctly, is you book the appointment, you go on the estimate, depending on the scope of work. I mean, maybe you can provide the estimate while you're on site, but I'm sure there's a lot of times where you got to go home and get in the estimating software or get quotes on materials. So I'm curious what others' process is in regards to charging and collecting for the estimate and delivering the estimate.
Caleb, I saw your hand shoot up, so I'm guessing you have a comment on this. Would love for you to unmute and tell us.
Yeah, so how we do it, and it's kind of I would say a combination between a free quote and a charging for it is and again, and this kind of goes back to the last question about the cancellation fee. When we're on with customers and we're going through the process of scheduling a consultation, filtering them out, all that kind of jazz, we try to give upfront expectations as best as we can. We're not perfect at it, but it goes a long way in collecting a cancellation fee. I think if you can say, hey, here's what to expect. We're going to get a credit card right now because of these reasons, and here's why. But back to the consolation. I apologize for the noise. It's raining in my truck right now, so it might be a little.
All right.
So what we do is we go out and we give a free verbal. But if they want anything written up, if we have to do any work beyond that, we charge $75 for that. Now we're in a smaller market, nothing like LA or some of the bigger markets. I think that some of these folks are servicing. So we don't write anything up until we see that $75 come in. And a lot of people will just right then and there, can I give you a check? Can I swipe a card? Until we see that come in, we don't do any work beyond going out and giving a free verbal. Another thing that has worked really, really, really well, but we only run it at certain times because it depends on how you guys want to do this, is $75 for a written proposal from us. But what we'll do on certain occasions as a way to get Google reviews is we'll say, we're going to waive that fee in exchange for a Google review. So if you had a good experience with us giving you ideas, meeting with you, going through different aspects of the project, design and whatnot, give us a Google review. As soon as we see that review come in, then we will give you a written up quote.
I've actually not thought of that idea, Caleb, and I actually really love that idea. The only caveat I would say is make sure that that is only verbally communicated. We don't want that to be communicated on a recorded call from Google Local Services. We don't want that to be communicated through a text or an email, just because if Google did catch wind of that, they would say you're paying for reviews, and there would be a chance you would get some reviews taken away or a listing suspended. But we're definitely not here to tell you that you can't necessarily pay for reviews or offer some type of incentive. In fact, we encourage that. We just want to make sure that you're going about it in a very tactful way so that you're not going to get in trouble.
Sure.
And I also love kind of on the first part that you're mentioning, this is all about setting expectations. If you are clear in setting the expectations with the customer on that very first phone call on how the process works, all of this will go a lot smoother. Dale Eads put in the chat, he's a plumber, so service guy. He says we charge for an estimate at the time that we are there to give the estimate. If they cannot pay us at that time, we withhold the estimate until we are paid. And I think that's a great rule of thumb. We communicate the estimate fee when we book that appointment. We go out to that appointment. We collect, whenever most of the time, Laura, I think you're going to be able to give the estimate right there in person while you're out there. And so you would collect at that time.
And I'll add something real quick here, and then Chris, I know you had your hand up as well. The easier it is for you to collect payment as well, it's something that can be forgotten about or kind of neglected, but being able to swipe a card, if the only way you can collect payment is by calling into the office and doing number by number, getting somebody's card information, that bogs it down and it just makes it a lot more clunky and a lot less likely that you'd be able to do, like we talked about, the reservation fee, the estimate fee, these sorts of things. Making it easy to collect payment is worth your time to figure out and the cost it usually takes to do that. And then Chris, you had your hand up. What you got? Oh, you're muted.
Did we lose them?
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, so at first, whenever I started, I was told I was doing some coaching with Sean from Profit First. That was the whole thing, is charging for estimates. And, I started doing it, and everybody, oh man, you're never going to get another, no one's going to get you out there. No one's going to pay for that. Too many people, man, people will write that check so fast. And it just depends on who it is. Not everybody's your customer. Like the ones, oh, can you come out today and give me an estimate, and they're calling you or texting you before the end of the night, like, hey, do you have that yet? You just say, hey, and if it was just a standard, I would do $75, like a service charge. And I'm a service company as well as remodeling. And if they're like, oh, well, we thought this was free, you just explain to them, well, that I have to come out. There's more than just putting eyes on it. You have to do this or do that. There's time involved in just going and looking at it. And they're like, oh, well, never mind. Well, then if they didn't value your time now, they're not going to value your time by the end of the job. And I've learned that. So that's just not your customer. So it makes it easy for you. Hey, great. I appreciate it. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste yours. And, best of luck. Now for bigger ones, I'll do $150. If someone's like, hey, we have 8 things. And then I ask them, I say, well, what do you really want to get done? I can price these things out for you, but I'm going to have to charge you. Okay, well, we would really like, we want to get these 4 things done, and we just want to know prices for these 4 things. We may get 1 or 2, but we'd like to plan that for later. Okay, well, I'm going to charge you $150 because I have to create 8 different job scopes, call these blah, blah, blah. But most of the time, people, because they see that you value your time or your service, and they're like, hey, look, they don't want to come off as rude or that hard to work with. And they're like, hey, yeah, look, what, $75? Like, let's go. So for existing customers, I don't really do it that I know that I'm getting the work. It's just the formal process of doing the estimate. But, use your judgment kind of thing.
Yeah, and I
Good.
think that's such good advice. And I'll even say, Laura, there's like not one set way of doing this. And I'll even say that like your businesses will come in stages, and different stages are going to require different things. And so like Dale Eads with Arnold's Plumbing for the past, I don't know, year or two, he has been charging estimate fees, where we charge for every single job, he's charging trip fee. But last week when he talked, they're in a state of growth right now. They have a lot of mouths to feed. They've got a lot of guys in the trucks, and we've got a little bit of time on our hands. And so we're not charging them right now. That doesn't mean that we're never going to charge it again. And it also doesn't mean that if we're dealing with a tire kicker, that he's not going to say, hey, we charge a trip fee just to try to weed out that tire kicker. He's using his discretion. And that's the beauty of being a business owner, is you get to make those calls. And so your business is going to come in certain stages. Like Copper Peaks Plumbing right now, who just had 183 leads come through Google Local Services alone, they sure as heck are charging for trip fees because they can, and they should, to help weed things out. So not one set rule of thumb here, it's kind of whatever season that you're in. Brandon, I see your hand up.
Just one more thing to add to that. A lot of us have types of service work or projects that are predictably priced that we can have an advertised price sheet on, and it reinforces the need when you do a custom quote or trip charge to actually go out and look at something that's not predictable. If you have your predictable stuff written down that you can send to them ahead of time to say, does what you're looking for fit in these parameters, then it reinforces why you would have to charge to come out and look at something that isn't on that sheet.
Love it.
Nice.
Laura, I see your thumbs up. Any other questions here today, guys? Comments, concerns, grievances? Matt, see your hand up. Unmute. Tell us what's happening.
Yes. Hey guys. So question about, I guess, cash flow for kind of we're electrical service and repair out in Phoenix and Arizona. And so I was telling Travis, like I started years ago with House Call Pro, left them, and then actually came back to them and got all set back up. Really, I was pretty impressed with, I guess, the additions and a bunch of different features that they've kind of incorporated in their software over the couple of years I was gone. But they have that feature, I'm assuming a lot of you guys know, the instant cash. So whenever we run a credit card, it like in like 5 minutes, like it's the cash is there. They do charge you 1% on top of the the 2 or 3% of the just running the card as it is. But I was curious how many of the service companies utilize that feature. I've turned it on, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like it. I mean, it's just the cash is there. But like specifically, like if you could run a card on like a Thursday evening or whatever, then traditionally, then you got to wait all the way through the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then it doesn't hit the account until like Monday or Tuesday, which was frustrating. I was just curious on cash flow, if you guys utilize that, or any other things that you guys have seen that have worked well.
Chris, I saw your hand up. Would love for you to unmute.
Yeah, I use House Call Pro. I've been using them for like 3 years, and they always say I actually do like the consumer financing, and I did that the other day. I offer like the 0%. I haven't done the instant cash there because they're always like baking into your prices. Why I do, sometimes 10, 20, $30,000 jobs. And so I generally have the credit card feature turned off. I mean, I try to get a check whenever, checks whenever I'm there. If it's really under anything 1,000, or 1,000 to 1,500, I let them do the card. But man, those fees,
Yeah,
they
that's
just
my
get,
concern.
they're always like, bake them in. Well, I don't know. I just feel like on some jobs, I like to give the customer the option. And I'm like, hey, look, if you want to pay $80 to run your card other than write me a check, great, go for it. But other than that, I'm like, I don't want to just add that $80 on top, because it just inflates your prices in an already inflated market.
Again, setting expectations.
Yep.
You as the customer, you as the business owner should never be paying that credit card fee. That is on them. If I go to the DMV and get a new license and I use my credit card, they're charging me that fee. They're not paying for it. And so you just got to set expectations at the beginning when you go to set that appointment. Hey, these are the types of payments that we take. If you're using a credit card, there is a 2-3%, whatever it is, convenience fee that doesn't go to us, that goes to the credit card company. If you want to avoid that, here's the other ways that we accept payment. And you're just setting those expectations in the beginning. And then if what you're asking, Matt, is like, hey, when they run the credit card, instead of it hitting the next day, I can, pay a little bit of a fee and get it right then and there. I would just be really concerned on how much money you'd be losing over a long span of time. It might not seem significant in the moment, but if you're almost every charge, it's going to add up and it's going to eat into your profits.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And then I'll add is 2 comments in there. Roman says he does that. Brandon said job or similar, but can select kind of specific jobs to do that on the cash now option. Yeah, well, now I lost my thought halfway through, but I'll just read those 2 comments and that'll be it.
Well, the other thing that I like that Chris, he's given the option. He's not like forcing them to use a credit card and they have to pay this fee. It's like, hey, if it's worth it to you for the convenience of using the credit card and you want to pay that $80 for that convenience, happy to do that for you. But if not, we can do cash, check, whatever works. But he's not pigeonholing them to him and then penalizing for it on top.
Preach, Travis.
I remember what I was going to say. It was kind of what Nicole had talked about earlier. Well, no, yeah. Travis, you did it. That's exactly what I was thinking. Something that Nicole had talked about earlier that I think is relevant to this too is the phases of your business. If your cash flow is tremendously tight right now and you need that, maybe you need that, but long-term strategy is probably not ideal.
Yes. These are all great questions, guys. Matt, did that answer your question? Do you have any more comments?
No, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Like I said, it's and that's true to piggyback off of that. If it's a check, a lot of times I can the bigger items, I'll usually tell them, like if it's 5, 10, anything, I kind of go back to anything over 1,000. I would just prefer a check. But sometimes, people are like, oh, can I, they love the Amex points, or
they
what
just
have
don't
you.
have checks anymore.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have the checks are becoming extremely rare. So no, that helps. Like I said, I always push for a check anyways. I like it. It's just clean, easy, neat, and I can lot of times I can, that'll go in the account, pretty quick. But no, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
The EFT option's always there too. Like I'll just have them do the EFT because it's the 1% instead of the 3 or 4%. But some your older people don't like to put the bank account number in. But I'm just like, look, you don't have to do your credit, just do the EFT and boom, done.
That's a good point. This is all great advice, guys. What other questions do we have this Thursday morning?
I had a question on so I do generally time and materials on that's just how, because I do so many things, to give prices, and I just feel like I price it out. It always works out for me that way because I do it based off of the P&L. But I've always struggled with either to do change orders or to do I did a remodel earlier this year, and just labor was 30 grand, and it ended up being, I think, like 38. But there was what was planned and what actually happened were 180 from each other, and that's fine. And my model is like, hey, we're always going to do what you want if it can be done, and it's going to be done right and well, but you're going to pay for that. And it was this change, that change, over adding this, we're not doing that, let's do this, we don't need these materials anymore. And I kept timesheets, I kept up with everything, and build them. And there was an argument, but he had already agreed to that before. And it's not always like what you agreed to and not, but it's what makes the customer the most comfortable. I said, well, maybe we should have went to the change order. Like, hey, if you want to change something, that's going to be X fee right now plus the cost. And then that's why I just tell people, hey, that's why I do time and materials, because you're going to pay for it regardless. And you lose having to pay that change order fee. So I'm just wondering, like, how you guys handle that if you do change orders, how customers view that, just how it works out.
I feel like you're almost answering your own question as we're talking through it here. And again, it's all about setting expectations in the beginning. Before we start the project, we're going to go over the working agreement. In the working agreement, we have a change order policy. I've got an example of one right here, and it's going to explain the 3 different types of change orders. The something unforeseen. There was no way that either you or I could have known this before we started the project, and it's now changing the timeline and the labor. We're going to sit down, we're going to talk about the new price and the new timeline. We're going to get signatures from both parties, and then we're going to move forward with it. There's no fee to that because nobody's in the wrong there. There's the change order where it's like, we effed up. Like that was on me. Like, my guys messed up, they broke something, whatever. We're gonna own it. You're not penalized. And that, guys, that's the only time that it's gonna affect you negatively. And we can talk, if that's a reoccurring theme with your guys, we can talk about other strategies to handle that, because that's kind of a different issue. And then the third type of change order, the one you're talking about, Chris, where they're constantly changing what they want. They're changing the scope of work, they're changing how they want it done, they're adding whatever. We need to communicate to our entire team that if there is a change order like that, work is stopped. They got to communicate it to you or the project manager. It's a $250 fee is typically what I see most people charging. And that fee does not go towards the job. That is just the fee to cover you pausing the job, redrawing up the estimate and timeline, reordering materials. It's not just affecting that current job, it's probably pushing back other jobs that you have in the pipeline. And so there has to be a fee for that. If we explain this and go over this change order policy before we start working with them, what the goal of that is to prevent those change orders from happening. So let's sit down, let's communicate, let's be really clear and make sure that we've got everything out on the table here so that you're not getting $250 fee. You know, I don't want to have to charge it. It's not like we make a ton of money off of that or any money off of it. And so you just want to make sure that you're setting those expectations at the beginning of the job, they're agreeing to it, and that we're holding them accountable to this change order policy throughout the job. If anybody needs a copy of this, just email your coach. We'll get you a copy.
And then Brandon, I saw you had a comment for him as well, if you wanted to add more to that.
No, just that whenever we do TNM, we just do a report every week and say, this is where you're at. Do you want us to continue moving forward? And so it goes back to the communication thing, but there just can't be any gray area as far as, hey, we're $10,000 deep in this right now. And if you don't want to continue, we can stop, but I have to know right now. And kind of puts them in a spot to say, okay, I approve that 10,000, we're moving on. And then you don't get to 38 grand when they think that you're at 28 grand.
Yeah, communication will solve a lot of things. Communication and setting expectations. Absolutely. What other questions do we have here today?
Okay.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, whenever you're pricing out a job, you know, I was generally doing, you know, I have a spreadsheet, all my labor and materials from an estimate times my markup to get the profit margin that you want. But I was, you know, say I do a bathroom remodel, you know, what is there a limit to where, like, say if I'm having to go buy a toilet, you know, a $250 toilet, you know, $1,000 vanity, like what are you guys marking up on that? Because, you know, if it's a $2,500 vanity, well, you can't do 1.5 on that, but you know, you have to account something for the materials, or, you know, just on those larger ticket items, what are you doing?
We do 30% on everything. And
Yeah.
it's just straight across the board. But
Okay.
whenever it's like a bathroom, we're doing it as a bid, it's a predictably priced thing. So we'll give them a selection sheet that has a picture of everything that we're putting in there, and that they're approving it off the selection sheet, but not necessarily off of a SKU. So if that SKU changes, that product can change slightly and we're still covered. But it's 30, no one's argued with 30% to this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would advocate similarly to reduce the complexity. The more that you try to do different percentage based on different cost of an item, the more time and just value that requires from you. And it almost is like this self-feeding thing. Like you have to get those larger percentages because you're taking more time to make those prices. So we go towards a cost plus estimate method, which you and I will talk about that here soon, Chris, for sure.
And if you have those things normally bid, like if you have a toilet that you normally use and a shower surround you normally use, if you bundle that into a marketable looking pamphlet, you're bundling in design fee and all of those things into that value package. So it's not just the markup on the product, it's the time that you had to put the design together, how you're presenting it. All those things are wrapped up into that same value proposition, and you're getting them that a lot faster than the guy who has to go back and build it SKU by SKU by SKU for every bathroom that they do. So we try to keep 3 or 4 of those options available for them, so that if they want to say yes to one of our 4 main options that we like, they can. And then if it goes custom, then we have a design fee that goes with that, like $1,200. And that gives them a package with a selection sheet that they could take and bid out against us if we want, but we got paid $1,200 to design it.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, and like Bryce was saying, Chris, and it sounds like it's on your guys' agenda to talk about soon, but I just find that cost plus method is a lot simpler than trying to mark up things. Not saying that markup doesn't work, because it can. I just find cost plus to be a lot simpler. It's kind of the one that we typically teach, as long as you know your margins. And I heard you mention your P&L earlier. Cost plus is only going to work if you know how much of your revenue is going towards overhead on average, so we know that we're calculating in your overhead costs and your profit. And then from there, all that you need to know is your materials and labor. It kind of takes out the complexity. But Bryce will definitely help you make sure that the margins are, correct, and we're able to calculate them into the price. Laura, I think you may have unmuted or raised your hand earlier. Do you have another question, comment?
I promise this is the last one for today.
It's okay if it's not. We love to have it.
Thank you. So kind of switching gears, this is more towards the service and repair oriented contractors. For many years, we've never allowed employees to collect payment. So I'm struggling and have a little anxiety about their involvement in knowing how much money or revenue is being generated from that transaction. And I'm curious what others' experience is. Do you have them coming in like, hey, you're only paying me $65 an hour and you charge them $2,000? I mean, what does that happen? And if it does, how do you handle it? Or am I dreaming up something that isn't there?
I'll let a client answer.
Yeah, that is a great question that needs to be from someone, not us.
Yeah. Any clients want to comment on this? If not, I'm chomping at the bit. I'll say, Laura. Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
The only comment that I have about that is I try to talk to the employees about what their goals are, and I talk about it in the same way as like a revenue goal for the business. I'm wondering what their income goal is, and then I try to say, unless we get to this revenue number as a business, that income goal isn't possible. So we're building a revenue plan together rather than trying to keep all of that from them. I have an admin who collects the money, but I have a bookkeeper who handles the money. And so that's subcontracted. None of my employees handle paying subcontractors or any of that. So we're only focused on money coming in rather than them seeing all the different places that money's going out and making sure that it goes there. There's no opportunity for them to do anything with the money. It's just a matter of setting a goal to say, unless we get to this revenue number as a team, we're not going to increase our income individually. So I'm trying to set that up in a way that encourages them to be motivated to increase the revenue number rather than being astonished at the revenue number. And none of them are holding an account with $100,000 in it, making sure that you're going to get paid for the next month and a half. And so I try to explain that to them too, that we have a reserve that secures their income for a certain amount of time, which is why we have to have this profit. It helps with their security.
Brandon, I love that comment, because one thing, I'll tell you, Laura, I've been doing this for around years now. I don't get clients having that issue hardly ever, if at all, of a employee coming to them and saying, "Hey, you charge them $2,000 and I only get paid blank." It doesn't really happen, or at least I haven't seen it a ton. And I love Brandon's advice, because we can't be scared of numbers. I have had clients that are scared of like their team knowing how much revenue that they're bringing in. That's the opposite that we want. And that's why I love Brandon's comment, because it's disarming the numbers. Instead of us being scared of them knowing the numbers, let's set a freaking goal. And that's something that we encourage and we teach. For each van, we want them bringing in 6,000 in revenue per week. If that technician doesn't know that that's the goal, they're flying blind. You're not doing your job as the business owner to really guide and encourage them. And we have a lot of clients that do a merit-based pay structure based on these revenue goals. So, hey, you get your hourly wage. This is your hourly wage, but you're going to get $100 bonus for anything over 6 grand, and then if you get anything over 7, you get another 50. And if you get anything over 8, you get another 50. And this is just an example, guys, but having a merit-based pay structure that even encourages them, to hit those revenue numbers is a great thing, and something that we really highly encourage. Your technicians, each one of your vans should know what their goal is. And each week we should be looking at everybody's number as a team, not even individually, but we should use that as a little bit of competitiveness in the workplace is not a negative thing. If one technician sees somebody crushing their goal and they're falling a little bit short, we hope that encourages them to say, hey, what could I be doing better? Or what is this guy doing that maybe I'm not? Or if they can hit that goal, the customers that I'm dealing with, then I should be able to hit that goal. And so, Laura, I think this is a great opportunity. And I'll also say, if you or Matt are the only ones estimating in your company, or the only ones who can estimate, or the only ones that can collect, your business will be capped at a certain revenue. You just will not be able to do more than that. We've got to be able to train our team and hold our team accountable to being able to estimate and to be able to collect money if we want to be able to expand and not have the business built around you guys. And so I think this is a beautiful opportunity to really hit that next stage in your business.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Yes. What other questions, concerns, grievances, comments do we have this morning? Okay. Going once. Going twice. Well, guys, love the participation. Love the participation that we have had here today. Love that you guys are coming with questions, with prepared to give feedback, coming with wins. You don't know who else needs to hear it. And so really appreciate you guys coming here today and being prepared. If you have any questions or feel like you didn't get, your question answered fully, or maybe some of the questions brought up your own questions, would love for you to reach out to your coach, book a laser call, send an email. It's what we're here for. We want to make sure that you feel empowered and equipped to be able to solve things fastly. But we will go ahead and wrap up this group call here today. We're going to do it with a big 3, 2, 1 growth. So if I could get everybody to unmute who can. I'm going to wait till I'm seeing the unmute's happening. And then we're going to go with a 3, 2, 1 growth.
Go!
Let's
go!
I can always count on Josh.